Hello folks, and welcome to this week's review. This time round I have an accessory for your turntable. It's a high-end platter mat. It's from the UK company Origin Live, and this is it. This is called the Strata. It's also the most expensive platter mat I have ever reviewed. It costs £295, and it's a measure of the importance of this oft neglected turntable component that has prompted such an evolved design, and this one has been worked on. Why? Well, because according to the company, the problem with most, if not all, platter mats out there is that they operate on too narrow a band. So what am I going on about? Well, platter mats are good at damping or removing vibration from in and around the cartridge and the rest of your turntable, basically, with its multitude of moving mechanical bits plus the vinyl record itself. Dumping vibration stops microphony forming, lowering the noise floor, exposing detail to the ear, and preventing delicate information from being masked behind high-frequency noise. Now, according to Origin Live, most platter mats out there, they only tackle the problem across a pretty narrow frequency range. Strata here, on the other hand, according to the company, spans many bands of frequencies, doing a more efficient job, which is probably why this new Strata mat arrives in 3 layers. Well, that I can see here. There may be even more, who knows. The bottom polymer layer forms a solid structure for the mat itself. Moving up is another solid disc layer, and bonded to the top of that is a material kind of substance. The bonded pair of layers are also loosely connected to the rear, so be aware of that when handling the Strata. Do not rip the whole thing apart by mistake. Handle this with care. And yes, of course, the central part of the record here is not supported by this mat, only this outer area. And according to Origin Live, that's all part of the design. That's what they were aiming for. Now, all of this is well and good. The only issue I can see here is that the Strata, well, it sits at 5 millimeters thick. This is also the thickest platter mat I have ever reviewed. So even if you're using already a thickish, say, 2 millimeter platter mat, you're going to have to add a further 3 millimeters of VTA to your tone arm. That is, on your turntable, if your tone arm's VTA cannot be changed, this mat is not for you. Saying that, considering the relatively high price of this mat, I guess most potential buyers will already own a turntable with variable VTA. Unless you're desperate to buy, of course. Then I suppose DIY is an option via a set of shims, hey? And that's basically the techie side of this mat. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of an in-depth sound quality section here, because I'm going to bring in a whole host of mats. I'm going to do some A/B comparisons with each and every one. Trying to keep it brief because there's quite a few mats, and hopefully we'll get to some sort of conclusion at the end of it all. So, for the sound source, I included Coldplay's Viva La Vida. I tried the first 2 tracks on side A. You've got an instrumental to begin with, some delicate stuff in there. You've got a hammered dulcimer. I think that's what it is. Could be an auto harp. I think it's a hammered dulcimer. So there's some delicate sort of string action. There's some delicate-ish acoustic guitars. Heavy-duty percussion as well. After that, it slides into a vocal track, and again, it's quite low-key, quite sort of emotional, so interesting contrasts throughout, so that's what I used. For the first AB, I picked this. This is a felt matte. This is quite a modern sort of variant on felt. You can get floppy felt mattes. They're equally interesting. This is a more stiffer version of your basic felt matte. Now, these are cheap and cheerful, but are remarkably effective. They are certainly better than nothing, and I actually much prefer felt mattes to those old-fashioned thick rubber mats you might find on a Japanese turntable, for example. They look good, they sound terrible. Felt mats offer great value for money. Even so, the Strata walked all over this thing. The felt mat just could not compete. The sense of control from the Strata here was absolute. Focus around vocal deliveries was a pure joy. The drums sounded strong, decisive, tonal realism shot through the roof. More than that, that bouncy hammered dulcimer, I think it's a hammered dulcimer. Well, it was struck like a percussive instrument anyway, whatever it was. At the start of life in Technicolor, that revealed for the first time a set of bongos underneath the dulcimer. I got that from this. I hadn't noticed them before with the felt mat. I heard them now. Next, and decidedly more floppy, is this leather felt mat. I think this one was from Project. I think this might be a Project leather mat. Anyway, wasn't impressed with this at all. Overly warm, masking the upper mid-range detail, closing in air and space across the soundstage. The Strata did none of that. In fact, the Strata did exactly the opposite, which is why I prefer the Strata. Next, the Cork mat. Better, the best of the other mats so far, in fact, offering an improved balanced output between your upper and your lower frequencies. If you have next to no cash at all and you haven't got a mat, or if you've got one of those horrible Japanese rubber mats and you're looking to improve, get one of these. This is a Cork mat and it gets the basics right, but it doesn't really kick on from there, while the Strata does kick on, producing an exhilarating performance compared to this one that plugs directly into the emotion of the performance. That's what the Strata does. Percussion has so much more character on the Strata than the Cork, for example, while subtle reverb tails hang off acoustic guitar strums that are too reined in via the Cork mat. Next up, we have a platter mat actually from Origin Live. This is a lot cheaper. I'm not mentioning prices here, am I? I'm going to be putting, well, you've seen this already because I'll have done this in post. I'm putting prices down below for each and every platter mat. So if you're listening to this on a sort of podcast level and you're thinking, why isn't he mentioning the prices? Well, they're on the screen, folks. That's where they are. Anyway, back to the plot. This is another rather lower cost Origin Live mat. It's called the Origin Live Upgrade Platter Mat, which is a terrible name for a platter mat, I have to say, but this was my go-to mat for several years at one point because it does a great sonic job and is highly recommended for those on a budget who have maybe a few extra pounds or dollars or euros to splash out. It's also ideal if your turntable cannot be changed in VTA terms because it's quite thin. It's also vastly superior to the Cork example I've just shown you. Right across the frequency spectrum, this is the one to buy if you have a little bit of budget, but maybe not a great deal. Although, and as I say, it's very floppy, it does not hold a candle to the Strata. As good as this upgrade mat is when compared to the Strata, bongos on this upgrade mat sound like someone hitting an upturned cardboard box. The Strata sounds completely and utterly in control of every frequency on this record. such precision, such focus. Noise is also much lower via this mat than this mat. Next in our little AB soiree is the Funk Firm Achromat. Mine is aging now, it's a little bit dinked. It's been around the houses a little bit, well used, you might say. And this is the first time I'm hearing a concerted effort to add focus and precision to the musical output. Now, I'm a big fan of the Achromat. It does a great job for a great price, considering its sonic performance here. The bongos, well, we mentioned bongos a second ago, didn't we? Well, the bongos on this track, just underneath that dulcimer, well, they sound like bongos, which is always a good thing. The drums add passion and power from this mat, while vocals are sensitive and vulnerable. The Achromat is on the right lines here, but the Strata moves along the road, if you like, adding detail, adding space, adding tonal accuracy, adding drum character, adding fragility in the vocals. That noise floor, again, drops still further too. Next up is the Soundeck PM platter mat. Now I've got a basic black version, and you can buy a basic black version too. You can also add your own images to the top of your mat. That's an extra service. It's, I don't know, an extra 30, 40 pounds. I can't remember. I will put the prices down below and also a link up there somewhere, and you can check. I did a little reviewy, newsy thing on this. So I'm going on too much about this thing when I should be talking about this. So back to this. The Soundeck also offers superb control across the frequency spectrum, provides a heap of detail and superlative bass control. Bass really soars on this. In fact, this probably has the best impactful bass. The bass impact, particularly the impact, is superb on this. Probably the best impact in terms of bass terms I've ever heard from a platter mat. The Strata, though, edges the Soundeck in terms of upper mid-range and treble detail. And also, while the Strata's bass response might not be the same bass impact, it does provide better tonal accuracy. It better blends into the overall mix. It adds more air and space to the music. That dulcimer I keep mentioning, well, that enjoys far more reach and air from the Strata, for example. Okay, we're getting into serious territory here. This is a Hexmat Yellow Bird platter mat. And Hexmat are true specialists in their field. They know platter mats. And Hexmat has always had, since I reviewed them anyway, the best two platter mats in the world. I'll get to the other one in a moment. This is one of them. Truly best in class designs. This is where the Strata has to earn its corn, which is quite apt because this is a yellow mat. This is where the rarefied platter designs live, just here. So how did the Strata cope with the Yellow Bird? Well, the Yellow Bird has it all. Focus, finesse, frequency discipline, detail. But the Strata lowers the noise floor still further. It adds more air and more space into the soundstage, and thus it releases more detail in the process, giving extra tonal accuracy right across the soundstage. That was a shock, because I have never heard a platter mat outside of another Hexmat platter mat do that to the Yellow Bird before. But there you are. Right now, the Hexmat Eclipse is the best platter mat I've ever heard. It's not cheap. Price is down below. I think it's at 230. However, it's the best Platamat on planet Earth, bar none. It does everything right. It does nothing wrong. It blows every other Platamat away. So, no pressure then. Hey, let's compare it to this thing, the Origin Live Strata. I first listened to the sublime Eclipse with its mid-range insight and organized soundstage, its sumptuous detail and low noise performance. That's where all the good stuff comes from, low noise performance. Then I listened to the Strata. How can I explain this? Well, the effect is a bit like taking your favorite car into a trusted garage, asking the guys there to give your favorite car a tune-up, and then after, feeling a performance boost of that familiar car when you're back on the road. That's what's happening here. I even tried playing vocal jazz, Ms. Keely Smith's That Old Black Magic album on the Reprise label. The Strata added 1 or 2 to everything that the Eclipse did. In fact, the Eclipse's mid-range, when compared to the Strata, sounded a little soft, slightly rolled even, when compared to the Strata. The Strata slightly lifted detail from the background, lowering the noise still further, exposing more detail, adding air and space, tweaking the focus, adding a touch of precision, while keeping the sound neutral, keeping it absolutely balanced. Now look, yes, the Strata is slightly more expensive here, but in this particular AB, money doesn't really matter. Why doesn't it matter? Well, I really didn't think, no matter how much money you threw at the problem, I didn't think that the Eclipse could be improved upon at all. I am shocked to tell you that the Strata does just that. So that's basically the review, rather involved review this particular week, of the Origin Live Strata Platamat. Let me give you a few final thoughts. I'll do some pros and cons and then a rating. Testing the Origin Live Strata Platamat was a real eye-opening experience. Ear-opening as well, I suppose. It works with your turntable and it works with the vinyl itself to lower the noise floor, and that lowered noise floor is the foundation of the performance. It's the foundation of everything good that comes from that low noise. That's the basis upon which all the other quality sound features lie. Push that noise floor down, detail gets a real chance to get to your ears. If you can then add some control and focus and precision and a sense of air and space to that detail, then you're onto a real winner. And my goodness, the Strata does just that. This Platamat, my friends, is now the best Platamat you can buy. So here's a few buying hints for you. If you've looked at this whole video and you're wondering, well, I can't afford a Strata, so what do I do? Well, this is where I hit into buyer's guide territory. Just a quickie. Basically, if you have next to no cash, get yourself a cork mat. There are mats out there which are a blend of cork and rubber. They're actually better, but they're more expensive. So this is a good start. If you have a little bit more cash, not a great deal, but you can afford more than a cork mat, get yourself an Origin Live upgrade mat. This is a corker. If you want to treat yourself to a top quality high-end mat, get yourself a Hexmat Yellowbird. And if you want the best mat that's ever been created on this planet, if only the best is good enough for you, there's no other option now. Get the Origin Live Strata Platamat. It wipes the floor with everything else. Pros and cons. In the good section, we have, well, that low noise. I've been banging on about it throughout the entire video. It's the headline feature. That's where all the good stuff comes from. balanced output. You're getting an enhanced detail here, but some people, some hi-fi companies, whatever they're producing, amplifiers, speakers, whatever, they enhance the detail in a false way by dialing up the mid-range and the treble, which makes them sound edgy and a bit bright. Not here. This is a truly balanced accessory, au naturel. So we have great detail in a balanced, neutral manner. And because of that, we have detailed mid-range. If you have a low noise product, chances are you're going to get more detail, and you do here. A spin-off of all of that is the tonal accuracy, especially around the percussion, but all over the place. And another spin-off is the air and the space around the mid-range, a beautifully spacious soundstage. In the bad section, absolutely nothing at all. Now, this is not just a good product, it's not just an excellent product, it's an innovative product, because it lowers noise across several frequency bands of sound. Other platter mats do not do this, or if they try to do it, they do not succeed, and if they do succeed, they don't do very well at it. The Origin Live Strata does, and because of that success, because of that innovation, because it pushes those boundaries further along, that's why I'm going to give this particular product a 10 out of 10 rating, super rare rating, a golden groovy congratulations to Origin Live. And that, folks, is the end of this rather exhausting review. And thank you very much for staying to the end of this video. Can I ask you down below if you can click on the, what is it called? The like button. Couldn't remember what it was called. It's been a long review, folks. It's been tiring. Anyway. Click the like button if you would please, and also the subscribe button, and it'll help this channel enormously. It'll just keep us going. In addition to that, down below I will give you a link to Origin Live, and you can check out this mat for yourself. And there's other links to my Facebook group and my website, and also Patreon. And on there this week there's a brand new exclusive hi-fi news etc. video. In fact, is it this week? I'm going to be looking at an alternative to PVC for making vinyl records. Speaking of vinyl, and we are in this particular video, there's some big players behind this. So I did a bit of an extended piece in the Hi-Fi News etc. video out on Patreon this week. Check it out. I'll be back next Friday with a music alert video, and I hope to have your company. Yes, you. So until then, folks. Bye-bye for now.